I was like, what? Like, Silk will tell you, the first like 15 seconds, I was like, oh my gosh. So, yes, that's what we're talking about today is why do we choose to lose ourselves in relationships?
Did you push record?
Thank you so much for tuning into Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life. Hey, Silka.
Hi, Paige. Well, you're back in Arizona. I'm here. We had so much fun when we were together
Yes.
and had some interesting conversations, one of which we want to pick up on in today's segment, and that is, have you lost yourself in your relationship? And of course, it was prompted, you and I, we watched the movie The Wife. You know, Glenn Close
Ooh.
was just recently nominated for an Oscar for that, and I know you got really upset watching watching this. Let's talk about that and just this whole phenomena. What women sometimes tend to do. We lose ourselves in a relationship.
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't seen The Wife, the acting is superb, but it was a whole story about a wife who lost herself in her relationship. So when I mean lost, I mean she chose to lose herself. So what we don't realize sometimes is we're choosing to lose ourselves, whether it's because it's easier to just kind of ride on someone's coattails, it's easier not to speak up because you don't want to upset the apple cart, if it's just easier to not grow and just have somebody else make the decisions and you don't have to worry about it, if it's easier because the person that you're involved with needs the glory and you'll just step behind them and not step into your own truth. These are all some of the reasons why people lose themselves in relationships. And for the movie The Wife, I was like, what? Like, Silk will tell you, the first like 15 seconds, I was like, oh my gosh, like I knew exactly where this was going. And so, yes, that's what we're talking about today is why do we choose to lose ourselves in relationships?
And one of the whys, of course, is our generation was raised to take care of our husbands, to take that second seat, to be the backup, to be the support.
Right.
And and if that's what really truly makes you happy, then I mean, it's not that that's a bad thing. But
Right.
if it doesn't, and if you're not living the life you really want, then it does become a problem. That's what we want to raise some awareness on today. Whether you're in a marriage and this is hitting home, or whether you're working on recreating your life after 50. How do you know if you're losing yourself again, Paige? What are some of the signs?
Well, just, some of the things that I had said. First of all, if you're noticing that you swallow your words and you're not speaking up, pay attention to that. If you're noticing that your significant others getting to live their dreams and their passion, and you're putting their needs in front of yours in the world of career, passions, purpose, and you're just kind of sitting back, that's another thing. If you're also noticing with your significant other that you kind of downplay yourself because maybe you don't want to shine as brightly because your significant other doesn't shine as brightly. And when you've started to shine a little brightly, maybe the significant other got upset because you were getting the glory or you were shining and they can't handle it. So those are three just off the cuff top things to kind of think about. Hey, do I do this? Why do I do this? Is it familiar to you? And Silke, you brought up a great point. In our generations, did you watch in your family, your mother be the one who took a back seat, who didn't speak up, who just kind of was submissive in some ways, and you didn't really get to learn what that was like? Something to pay attention to.
Yeah. Well, there's so much of this hits home for me. I mean, my mother, she was a good German housewife, me and my father. She never knew how much money my dad made. I mean, it was strictly, it was two separate responsibilities. And I hated it. I said I would never be like that. And I didn't realize how much of that I actually carried into my relationships. I was married. I gave up. I mean, I had my master's when I was 22, but I gave up a blooming career to follow, my former husband around the country. because he kept getting transferred. That was a choice I made, so I can't blame anybody. And even as I stepped out into this new life, recreating my second act, I've seen that a couple of times where I will automatically take on, the life of somebody else. I'm catching myself more and more now. But for some reason that has always been ingrained in me. And I guess that's really what we wanted to talk about today is can you really pursue your own dreams and goals and excel to the point that you want to excel to, if you bring those characteristics, into a new situation.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like I grew up in an Italian family, same thing. But you said something really poignant. Like you had gone into a relationship. You said, well, I chose this. I think at that time when you were 22, it was a subconscious choice. So if there's anybody out there who sees this, look back and go, did I make a subconscious choice at that time? And most people do in their young 20s. But you kind of like step back, let him lead. And now you're learning now, hey, I don't have to do that. But then there's the flip side. There's a flip side of us growing up in families like that. And then we as women get in relationships and we're like, no effing way am I going to sit back and I'm going to take control and I'm going to wear every pant there is to wear in the family. And that's not good either because it doesn't leave space for your significant other to have their growth either. So we usually go two ends of the spectrum. One when we kind of sit back and are submissive and we don't speak up, and the other one we're like, no way, I am going to make sure that I'm not my mother and I'm going to do this. So once we've played with both sides of the spectrum, then we kind of know, okay, where do I want to be in the middle here? Because there's space and room for both people. If both people are open, if they communicate what their goals, what their needs, what their passions, what their dreams are, if they speak up even when things are uncomfortable and it might upset the other person, you're not going to grow and you're not going to get anywhere in a relationship swallowing your words and not stepping into what your soul is supposed to do here in this lifetime.
Yeah. No, yes, very, very true. And, again, I look back at that time in one of my very good best friends, we went to college and to graduate school together, actually had our first job out of college at the same place. And, where I chose love and giving up, as I said, my blossoming career that was happening at that time, she did just the opposite. She gave up love to follow her dream. She went to New York, followed her career, actually never got married. So we took very different paths. We have very different levels of satisfaction with our life. And incidentally, both of us now, we're still very best friends and have found balance late in life. She's actually engaged for the first time and is not as domineering as she was before because that's what she needed to be. And I'm not totally, taking care of somebody else. So it is interesting where life takes you and what we can learn from it. Paige, we're coming to the end of our segment. How do we close this out? What are some of the a good tip you can leave to recognize whether or not we're doing this to detriment or to benefit?
Well, you're never going to do it to benefit if you're not speaking up. It's never a benefit if you're choosing to step behind and not step into what you're here to do. So there's no benefit in that whatsoever, because somewhere in there, your soul will die. You just will, because you're not living what you're supposed to live. So that's one big thing. If you're in a relationship currently and you're noticing, oh my God, that sounds like me, what do I do? Take it one step at a time. Start with your voice. Start speaking up about what are your passions, your dreams, and what's not getting fulfilled. And maybe you want to write them down first so you can be really clear as to what it is, and then broach this topic with your significant other. And if you need to, go into counseling because you've played a dance. There's been a dance that the both of you have been playing for years, maybe decades, that needs to change. So that's, one big component. If you've been out of a relationship and you're like, I am so afraid to get back into this again because what if I pull and do the same thing I did before and I attract the same person? This is where you have to begin to do the inner work. If you know what your red flags are, trust that and be aware of it. And when you start to date, if you start to notice and feel yourself going backwards, just catch yourself and know this: life is not perfect. It's messy, and that's okay. And each time you catch yourself, it won't be as intense and you won't stay there for the length of time that you have before, where it becomes a habit, and a pattern.
Yeah, I completely agree. Paige, thanks. We are out of time, so we'll see you next time on Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
For your second active life.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching. If you have a topic that you would like to see us cover, please visit our website, secondact.tv. On our homepage, we have a suggestion box in the upper right-hand corner. Just drop us a line. Let us know what's on your mind. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time. Bye-bye.